Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day number 978. December the 6th, 2019, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, okay, Madam Botox, she stepped up to the podium and stumbled and stuttered her way through a 7-minute speech where she went ahead and directed the Penguin to move forward with articles of impeachment. Thank you, Lord. Normally, you're hoping your adversary is stupid enough to take themselves out, you might say. And there's an old phrase, I think it goes like, if your enemy is busy destroying himself, don't interrupt him. I believe that's Sun Tzu. Now, it's not exactly clear what the articles are going to be, but it almost sounds like they're going to go back to Uncle Bob the Executioner and the Russia thing. I don't think that that's going to go over very well. Maybe they missed the Mueller report. They found nothing. Maybe they didn't see the Mueller hearings. It was a faceplant. But they're moving forward anyway. They're on a suicide mission. On the crazy train. Oh my goodness gracious. Yes, and then of course they have determined that they're going to begin the first day of the new impeachment hearings, which, I don't know about you, but I'm losing track. And I'd pay close attention, like a lot of you. Think about the average person, especially the average independent voter, who's not even paying attention, and we know from the TV ratings that very few people are. When they hear that the formal impeachment hearings are going to begin on Monday, they have to be scratching their head and going, wait a minute, hasn't this impeachment thing been going on already for like a month and a half? What do you mean it's starting on Monday? I think people are so confused by the whole process that they're tuning it out. Plus, they just don't care. And we can see this, of course, it's reflected in the TV ratings. It's reflected in polls, Trump, and the poll numbers for Trump. And of course, poll numbers on impeachment are falling. So I don't think I've ever witnessed a own like I'm seeing here. I mean, this is just extraordinary, but I'm very happy about it. Now, I know a lot of you may be thinking that's kind of crazy. I mean, do I actually want impeachment to happen and all that? Well, not really. I'd prefer it did not happen, but they've been talking about it since the day he was inaugurated. So I'm glad it's finally here. And if they're going to do it, let's do it now. I'm tired of talking about it. If they're going to do it, let's do it. But the most important thing is that this only works, and it doesn't even work well. It's barely working. In fact, you can say it's not even really working, what they're doing so far, because they have complete control of the process as long as it's in the House. But as soon as this moves over to the Senate, it's game over. And you talk about the tide turning, it's going to be unbelievable. Trust me. Now, I don't say that because I'm a huge fan of Twitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham. I don't think that they're particularly great friends of Trump, and I don't think they really have his back. I don't really think any of those things, but they're politicians. And at their very core, as politicians, they do not miss an opportunity to bitch slap their opponents. And they've been sitting back watching this stuff go on, and it's not even that they would do it for Trump, or for his benefit, or for our benefit, or for the country's benefit. It's purely for these guys. They're politicians, and it's an election year, especially for Lindsey Graham. And so this is why even people like Mitt Romney, who normally would be an anti-Trumper, and he is an anti-Trumper, but even he is not going to support impeachment. They're not going to get, I don't think they might get Murkowski or Susan Collins. Maybe you'll get one of those two or both to vote for impeachment, but ultimately they're never going to get anywhere near the votes that they need. And even a lot of Republicans in the Senate who are not really firm Trump supporters by any stretch, they simply, in an election year like this, cannot take that kind of a risk. And they're politicians. They don't miss an opportunity to bitch slap their opponent and knock them down a few rungs. And this is exactly what they're going to do. But it's not because it's on Trump's behalf. It's personal for them. So that's kind of my take on that. But this is an epic disaster in the making. And again, as I've been saying for a very long time, I guess Madam Botox feels she has no choice. This is a very, very bad decision. It's a stupid decision. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. But yet she pushes forward. Her strings are being pulled by people obviously above her. And, of course, Pelosi's not the best messenger, nor is the Penguin, nor is the Bug-Eyed Fool. I mean, that's your team. That's your team right there. Pelosi, the Bug-Eyed Fool, and the Penguin. I mean, I wouldn't want to, all my hopes and dreams riding on these three clowns, but that's what you've got. And Pelosi, I mean, she's got. I'm starting to think that her and Biden are both, senile. Or certainly getting to that point where you could probably clinically diagnose them as somewhat senile, mildly senile at the very least. I mean, it's not all there. And you can tell that Pelosi is under tremendous pressure because the way that she snapped, just like Joe Biden. Both of them yesterday snapped. With Madam Botox, she had just finished giving her little impeachment speech. And Rosen, this guy who used to be with Fox, asked her if she hated Trump, and she, it definitely triggered her, and she definitely went off on Rosen. And, she snapped in a sense. And so you can see that she's really, really wound up and under tremendous amounts of pressure. It's almost like, she almost looked like a hostage up there, giving that speech. It's like, she almost looked like someone was behind her with a gun in her back, forcing her to say it. I mean, it's like she knows that what she's doing is absolutely suicidal, but it's almost like she has no choice. So, looking forward as how this thing is going to play out. Obviously, they're going to have these impeachment hearings. It looks like they're going to try to go back and dredge up the Trump-Russia thing. And they're talking about, she's talking about abuse of power, obstruction, but those are kind of like nebulous terms. I mean, abuse of power, I mean, you got to give a specific, you can't say abuse of power, okay, that's a term. What is the specific thing he did? What action did he take? And you can say, well, he did this and this. It's all conjecture, it's opinion. I mean, you can't, it's not going to work. I mean, this is crazy stuff. And again, anybody with a lick of sense in their head would be advising the Democrats that you can't do this. You can't try to impeach a president purely on spin, in a media narrative, especially when the Republicans control the Senate where the trial is held. And I fully expect, and they better call Biden, both Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, the whistleblower, the bug-eyed fool. I would call Nancy Pelosi herself, chalupa, and right on down the line, and call no witnesses who offer hearsay evidence. None. And that would mean the only one that they could bring in is the ambassador, Sunderland. And he's already said, basically, yeah, Trump told me on the phone, no quid pro quo. I mean, this thing is a disaster. And the way I see this playing out is that over the next couple weeks, probably prior to Christmas, they will have the vote. And, again, I mean, they'll have the vote, and I would not be surprised if they have too many Democrat defectors to even pass it. I would not be surprised if that happens. But Madam Botox and the powers that be can bring a lot of pressure on these people and force them to vote for it. So, we can't lose on this deal. One of two things is going to happen, and either way, Trump wins. Either A, Pelosi gets the votes to pass it, or she doesn't. If she gets the votes to pass it, it's a win, because then it goes on to the Senate for a trial. Then the Republicans take over. All these witnesses can be called. All the hearsay witnesses will not be called. All the evidence will be brought forward. And if McConnell wants to, he can drag this thing out for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and just literally destroy the Democrats day after day after day, bringing in the Bidens, bringing in Chalupa. I would just keep bringing in people, person after person after person, and every day just beating them to death. At the same time, you're taking 2 or 3 of the Democrat candidates off the campaign trail, because the impeachment hearings are 6 days a week, and you got to be there. So that would mean, I guess, Cory Booker. I assume isn't he a senator? I think he is. Certainly Biden and Sanders, Warren and Sanders, will have to be taken off the campaign trail. They can't be very happy about that. And so it's going to be a disaster in that regard. And At the same time that all this is going on, and keep in mind, they scheduled these hearings for Monday, the same day that the IG report's coming out. And I'm sure that's no coincidence, because remember, this entire thing is a media strategy. They know they have no actual evidence, so they're running a media strategy, hoping that they, with their allies in the media and all the other resources they can pull together, can throw enough propaganda out there that they can influence enough people that they can change public opinion polls. It's all about changing the polls through a media strategy, but it is not working. We can see it is not working because we can see that Trump continues to go up in the polls, impeachment continues to go down, and the Democrats have accomplished nothing. It's a loser. And for any of those Democrats who are forced to vote to go forward with impeachment, they're signing their political death warrant. That's what they're doing, and they know it. They know it. Pelosi is essentially giving the Republicans control of the House of Representatives by forcing this impeachment. Not only that, instead of signing the trade deals, doing something about prescription drugs, and all these other things, she's getting Democrats, even in what would be considered normally fairly safe seats, she's putting them in a crucial bad situation because they literally have nothing to campaign on, positively to campaign on. The only thing that Democrats campaigning in 2020 will be able to talk about, what they did, was impeachment. That's all they will have to talk about because it's all they did. They did nothing else. And it's going to create a golden opportunity. Even in some places where it usually isn't that close, you could see Republicans picking up seats that not only the ones that are in red districts, but you could see some in some blue districts that could go red because of the fact that they just haven't accomplished anything. And this is what really angers people. I mean, yeah, they understand the three-ring circus that the swamp is. They understand the partisan politics. They understand all that. But as long as some things get done for the country, they'll generally tolerate the garbage as long as something is getting done along in the process. But when nothing got done, when everything was put on the burner to focus totally on impeachment and nothing gets done, it makes it really tough if you're campaigning for re-election and you literally have zero things to campaign on. Well, I've been here for 2 years in Congress. You need to re-elect me because I've just been here for 2 years and here's what I accomplished. When your resume says that the only thing you accomplished was impeachment, which will turn out to be a massive fail, you're probably going to get beat. Not only that, they think that by having these hearings on the 9th, the same day the IG report comes out, that somehow they're going to knock the IG report and all that kind of stuff off the front page. But let me make a prediction for you. In a week from now, by the end of next week, by next Friday, no one will even know what's going on with the impeachment hearings. It'll be completely, hardly anybody will be talking about other than MSNBC and CNN, neither of which has much of an audience. But what most people will be talking about, even if the Horowitz report is only half as damaging as it's reported to be, that's what most people are going to be talking about. Not only that, once the IG report is out, Barr and Durham are now free to fully pursue this investigation. Barr is most likely going to come out after the IG report comes out, and he's going to probably make a statement. He may even do a written rebuttal of things that Horowitz put in his report. And then you're going to see this investigation go full steam, and I would not be surprised if we start seeing indictments pretty soon as well. So, I mean, that's the way I see this thing playing out. I think the object here is to control the media narrative, flip the media narrative, because the Democrats know what's coming with the Horowitz report and what will follow after that and what will follow with the Durham investigation and all these things. They know it's all there. It's a media war right now. It's a strategy of gaining control of a narrative, controlling the narrative, and they're going to lose this fight. I can assure you of that. So stay tuned. But you would think that we should all be very sad that they're going to impeach Trump, but I'm quite happy about it. I'm tired of hearing about it for the last 3 years. It's all we hear. Let's get on with it. And the faster that they get this done, and I think they want to do it before Christmas, the better off we are. And hopefully the Senate takes it up right after the first of the year. And I hope McConnell drags it out as long as he can, because every day it will be literally brutal for the Democrats. In the meantime, you'll have the fallout from the IG report, likely many criminal referrals. We might even hear from Barr. He might write a rebuttal. He might he might address the media. We might start seeing some indictments coming down, more stuff coming out, because now the Horowitz report is done. So, I mean, I see this as the beginning of the end for the demo commies, and Trump's going to win 2020 in a massive landslide, and they are going to win the House, and they're going to win it easy. You are looking at the complete suicide, the political suicide of a political party, brought to you by Madam Botox, the Penguin, and the Bug-Eyed Fool. There you go. That's my analysis. Well, the Rotten Reverend Clinton didn't take her long to tweet out, "No one is above the law." You know, I'm really glad that Democrats keep saying no one is above the law. I hope they remember that when we look at Barack Hussein Obama and what he knew and when he knew it. And I'm telling you what, he knew it all. He knew everything. And I can't wait to hear people saying, yep, no one is above the law. Remember, you told us that no one is above the law. We must have 1,000 sound bites of Democrats saying no one is above the law. And when the spotlight's on Obama, and when the lights are being turned up on him and his cronies and the FBI and all these other creeps, it'll be fun to watch the playback of these video clips of all these Democrats saying no one is above the law. It will be poetic justice. And, of course, we have Trump campaign manager Brad Parscale coming out and tweeting right after Madam Botox's speech, where he says, Pelosi, Schiff, and Hunter Biden should testify. Oh, absolutely. Pelosi, Schiff, and Hunter Biden should testify, along with Quid Pro Quo Joe, along with Chalupa, along with Brennan and Clapper. And you go right on down the line. Yeah, absolutely. Should happen. We have a new story also following up on Giuliani in the Ukraine. It appears that Giuliani has met in Kiev with the Ukrainian parliamentarian Andrei Durkach, and he has produced, and they're actually showing pictures of it, of the documents. So Giuliani is meeting in Kiev with Ukrainian parliamentarian Andrei Durkach, who has showed Giuliani documents that prove not only was Hunter Biden receiving mega dinero from Burisma, but Joe Biden, Papa Joe, Quid Pro Quo Joe, was paid $900,000 for his lobbying efforts from Burisma, as well as his son. Wow. And Giuliani is also, while he's over there in Kiev, he's meeting with the prosecutor who was fired. And I imagine he'll be getting a lot of information there. So this Ukraine story is not going away, and clearly Giuliani is not backing down, nor will he. So there's a lot more left to be learned about that, and that too is going to be coming up on top of everything else. It's looking like a bad year for the demo commies. A bad year. Maybe as bad. Probably this could be as bad as 68 was. This could be 10 to 100 times worse than 68. For the demo commies. Then, of course, we have Biden being asked by a Fox News reporter about being, subpoenaed to testify in the Senate if the impeachment trial goes to the Senate. And Biden says that he will not appear voluntarily. And he says if he's called to testify in the Senate on Burisma corruption-related issues, he is not going to play ball. Well, I don't think Quid Pro Quo Joe quite understands this. Now, he was a senator. He certainly should. But in a impeachment hearing in the Senate, if you're subpoenaed, you got to show up. Just ask a bunch of those Nixon witnesses who didn't want to show up. Ask a bunch of those Clinton witnesses who didn't want to show up. Oh, yeah. And if Quid Pro Quo Joe refuses, that will only make the scandal worse. Not showing up after being subpoenaed to testify will actually play worse than having to testify, and ultimately he will have to testify. And if he doesn't, he'll look guilty as hell. And if they get his kid up there, he's dumber than a rock. Both him and both Quid Pro Quo Joe and his kid are both dumber than rocks. And they will get absolutely filleted in a Senate trial, which is another reason why I can't believe that the Dems are going to go through with this. They're absolutely suicidal. This is suicidal tendencies right here. I've never seen anything quite like it. I've never seen anyone, commit political suicide the way the demo commies are now. This is if they care at all about Biden's candidacy and they do want to see Biden, this does not help Biden. A trial in the Senate does not help Biden or the demo commies. It's suicide, but let them do it, and I'll cheer all the way. Get your popcorn ready. You're going to need a lot of it over the next couple weeks. We also have BuzzFeed reporting that Joseph Mifsud's passport and wallet were found at an airport in Portugal, in an island, a Portuguese island, right off the coast of Morocco. And these items, the wallet and the passport, were found back on August the 5th of 2017. That would have been 3 months before Mifsud disappeared, and 6 months after he was questioned by the FBI. And of course, the last we've heard about Mifsud from this particular Italian news source, saying in the article that Mifsud had reportedly feared for his life. And this is something that's been reported before in the Italian press, and that's exactly why I think Barr and Durham, one of the main reasons probably, is they got a hold of those 2 phones that were given to Mifsud to use. And those were, of course, appears comes from the UK. Then they go over to Italy, and then they're told, of course, they hear this deposition, and according to this Italian news source, in that deposition, essentially, Mifsud says that he feared for his life, and he went there looking for protection. So the question you have to ask, if you're John Durham, why? Why does he fear from his life, and who does he fear? Who is it that he fears? And why did he and Halper both go underground right after their names come out? Innocent people don't do that. Innocent people come out when their name comes out and it's kind of a smear. They come out and clear themselves. They don't go hiding. That's what guilty people do. Well, this character, this crazy nut that we had on this so-called constitutional lawyer, academic, Mr. Feldman, who was on that panel yesterday, saying in testimony under oath that he was an impeachment skeptic until the July 25th call between Trump and Ukraine president has now been proven to be a lie. He said he was a skeptic until he heard the call. Really? Well, it turns out that he wrote an article in Vice magazine on May 17th of 2017 that Trump had committed impeachable acts. So there he was, lying under oath. Do you think he'll get the same treatment as Papadopoulos and Michael Cohen and Roger Stone? Because that's why they're doing. That's why they got into the trouble they got into, apparently for lying to Congress or lying under oath. Well, that's exactly what this egghead professor apparently has done. Let's see if they bring charges against him. Now, that guy, I'm watching him in those hearings. I'm watching some clips. And you know who he reminds me of? And we're talking about the younger guy. His hair's kind of combed back. Real arrogant, smug son of a bitch. He reminds me exactly of the professor in the Rodney Dangerfield movie Back to School. The one who's teaching the business classes, and Rodney Dangerfield keeps interrupting him and telling him how business really works. And, of course, Rodney Dangerfield's trying to put the moves on his girlfriend and stuff. He reminds me of that uppity professor. It's the same guy, same attitude. It's almost like this guy watched that movie a dozen times and tried to pattern his character after this character in the Dangerfield movie. He looks like him. He acts like him. He's just as smug. It's hilarious. This guy has got a lot of problems, I do believe. Well, things are not going well for Buddy Boy, Buttigieg. It appears that Black Lives Matter has crashed his event in South Bend, Indiana on Wednesday. And what's funny about this is it was a Black Lives Matter guy who's white who got up on the podium and took the microphone away from, appears, a black councilwoman. And he was mad because black people are supporting Buttigieg. He's upset that black people are supporting Buttigieg, and he belongs to BLM. He's a white guy, and so he crashes this event with some other BLM protesters. So, yeah, Buttigieg, for some reason, doesn't go over very well with the minority communities, particularly the black community. I'm not really sure exactly why. There's some stuff out there that I guess he said or whatever, but he's got a real problem with that particular group. And, you know, to be honest with you, he's the only reasonably halfway sane Democrat on the stage. He's the only one that could literally not completely embarrass them in the party and himself. But because he just cannot make traction with black voters, it's likely he will not get the nomination. And I think he's sitting around 10, 11, 12% right now, but I think he's kind of like peaking. I think he'll go back down. I think his real bottom is probably somewhere around 8%, somewhere like that. And I think he'll achieve equilibrium, just like Pocahontas is doing right now. Kamala Harris eventually did. They're all dropping. It's looking more and more like quid pro quo Joe or Bernie. And that's what it's looking like right now until the Rotten Reverend Clinton does the her number at the Democrat convention. With a brokered convention, she could be brought forward in nomination. And I think that is the Rotten Reverend Clinton's plot. She's also behind all of this stuff that's going on now with the impeachment, the Trump, Russia, Ukraine, and all. The Rotten Reverend Clinton's people are pushing this. We have John Kerry endorsing quid pro quo Joe. Well, I guess so. You better, because you're tied up in the Ukraine corruption right along with him. John effing Kerry, who, by the way, served in Vietnam, has got a lot to worry about in this Ukraine situation, just like quid pro quo Joe. Trump approval, according to Rasmussen, is at 52%. Rasmussen has a tendency to be a bit on the positive side sometimes. In their polls, they're usually several points higher than what things really are. But still, I think Trump is probably sitting probably right around 50%, which is, 5, 6, 7 points is better than where Obama was at this time in his presidency. And look at what Trump has been under, the assault he's been under. Obama was given nothing but a free pass. If Obama had taken even 10% of the heat that Trump's taken, he would have been at 20%. Nope, not going to work. Unfortunately, we have Jonathan Turley, who also was on that panel. He is now under major fire. Of course, he's a teacher there at George Washington, I believe, University, a very liberal place. And now they're calling for his head. They want him kicked out of George Washington University for simply appearing in the hearings and giving his opinion. Of course, we know the left is intolerant. They do not tolerate differing opinions because they are totalitarian control freaks. That's what the left is, and they're showing their spots, and people recognize what they see. Let's see, we also have Glenn Simpson. Another thing coming out in his new book is that the FBI told Christopher Steele about Papadopoulos. They told Steele that Papadopoulos was a target of an FBI investigation, and they told him that back in the summer of 2016 in Rome. Now, that's generally not something that you do. The FBI generally doesn't inform informants. They rely on informants to inform them. They usually don't tell informants anything. They don't give them any information. They rely on the informant to give them the information, because you don't want to give your informant anything that they could use, because a lot of informants make shit up. So you don't want to give them anything that they can use to try to create some more information that may or may not be true, which you're probably paying them for, that could lead you down the wrong road or get you sidetracked to where you want to be. It's generally considered a rule in the FBI. You do not, or even local cops, local detectives, you do not inform informants. They inform you. But here we find out that the FBI, and I assume this will be Michael Gaeta, told Christopher Steele that the FBI had an open investigation into George Papadopoulos, and he was told that in Rome in the summer of 2016, and at the time, apparently, according to Glenn Simpson, Christopher Steele did not know who Papadopoulos was. I find that difficult to believe as well. And also, probably something that's even worse, but this is something I think we've already known, but this, I guess, confirms it. And it's Simpson confirming it. That's what's important here. I mean, it was pretty much, we've known this for a long time, but now Simpson is confirming that the Steele, he's confirming that Christopher Steele passed the Cody Shearer dossier to the FBI directly. Now, we've known that. It's been reported on, but I can't believe that Simpson is admitting to that. And, of course, we know that Christopher Steele got the Shearer dossier from Jonathan Weiner, who got it from Blumenthal, who got it from Shearer. And I think we're going to find out that one of the pieces of information that they used to get FISA warrants was based on, also not just on the so-called Steele dossier, but on the Shearer dossier. And when that comes out, that is going to be a problem for the rotten Reverend Clinton, because Cody Shearer and Blumenthal, you say Cody Shearer and Blumenthal, everyone knows that's Hillary's guys. Hillary's boys, right there. We have Paul Sperry reporting that John Durham wants to know why former NSA Director Mike Rogers dissented in the ICA report and why Clapper and Brennan tried to get him fired. So Durham wants to look into that. Well, I think that as we've reported here on TowerGate, I think we have a pretty good idea of what happened. Mike Rogers went to Trump Tower without getting permission from Clapper. And he went there and he apparently had a meeting with Trump. And the next day, the day after Mike Rogers goes and talks to Trump, Trump moves his entire campaign operation. Well, it wasn't a campaign at that point. He'd already been elected. It was in the period between after he won the election and his inauguration. So Trump moves his entire team out of Trump Tower the very next day, and he moves to his other offices over in New Jersey, at the golf course over in New Jersey. So whatever Mike Rogers told Trump made Trump move everything out of the of where he was in Trump Tower the very next day. So my guess, I think that what we assume is that Mike Rogers told Trump that Trump Tower was under surveillance, and he would know. He was the NSA director. And of course, once Clapper and Brennan found out that Rogers had gone and briefed Trump, and now Trump's moving out of Trump Tower, they went to Obama and tried to get Obama to fire Mike Rogers, but he did not. So that's probably what Durham's going to find out. And then, of course, we have Paul Begala. Many of you know Paul Begala. He's been around the Clintons for a very, very long time, and he's currently acts as a consultant for the rotten Reverend Clinton. Paul Begala, hardcore left-wing anti-Trumper. Really nasty guy. Never, ever liked this guy. He's just a very nasty person. He is essentially a paid consultant for the rotten Reverend Clinton. And he is saying he literally goes on CNN and says on CNN that he met with Madame Botox right after the Democrats won the 2018 midterms to discuss impeachment. Hillary's hired propagandist met with Pelosi the day after the Dems won the 2018 midterms to discuss impeachment. I told you the rotten Reverend Clinton was in the mix. Of course, we found out yesterday or 2 days ago that one of Uncle Bob the Executioner's star witnesses, George Nader, who's of course a convicted pedophile, has been indicted for concealing millions of dollars of illegal campaign contributions to the rotten Reverend Clinton campaign. Big Clinton campaign donor indicted for concealing millions of dollars in illegal campaign contributions. Well done, Attorney General Barr. And of course, one last thing. We have Glenn Simpson again in his book saying that the dossier was not a finished product, that it was a product. In fact, it was not a product. It was a smear campaign, Mr. Simpson. Lawyer up, you're going to jail. And yeah, to say it's not a finished product. Yeah, right. Alrighty, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm all out of time. You guys have a good evening. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.